man.
Good deal. Hey, welcome back, John Kelly, law enforcement life coach with your Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. Hey guys, I have Eric Reynolds with me today, retired Leo, actually retired, and he got dirty, man. He got down and dirty in it, and we're going to talk about some of his experiences, some of his trauma, more importantly, what he's doing to address trauma and his lifestyle and being healthy. And, guys and girls, none of us come out of this profession unscathed, right? In one form or another. And Eric has certainly had some deep scars from this thing of ours. So we're going to talk about how we get through it, how we become better. He's got a bunch of things going on. He's got Keto 50 and Cops and Campers and a bunch of initiatives that I want you to be aware of. And he is doing some great things in retirement. So without further ado, Eric Reynolds. It's good to see you. Look at you, man, with the glasses, trying to look smart, bro. Come on, knock it
Well, I
off.
just started realizing I can't see my notes.
Oh my
I
God.
was like, oh
You
shoot.
and me, bro. So listen, the conversation with the wife today was, should I get that LASIK surgery on my eyes? Because I can't see anything without glasses. So yeah, man. Good to see you, brother.
Nice to see you, man. Thanks for having me on, John.
Yeah, man. It's my pleasure. Thank you for making the time for us.
Reaching out
So,
6 months ago. Okay, yeah. No, I'm
dude,
just
listen.
busting your chops.
Yeah, listen. I'm like, what is this? All right. So for the listeners, Eric reached out probably 6 months ago, and I'm really not good with social media. I know, contrary to popular belief. And I'm like, what is this little thing over here? This is it looks like a paper airplane. I'm like, what is that? And I click on
Oh,
that
it's
and
a
it's
message.
it's a message from Eric 6 months ago. And I'm like, yeah, how you doing, bro? I know I apologize for getting back to you late. I don't know, man. 6 months is the new, 30 minutes for me. So what have you
All
been up
good,
to,
man.
man? Real quick for the listeners to put some framework behind everything that you're doing now. Let's talk just briefly a little bit about the past, and why you're doing what you're doing now. I guess that's the thing. So you start on the job in the early 90s, right? Take us from there, brother.
All right, man. So I'm a son of a retired Miami-Dade homicide sergeant. So I grew up in Miami. She was a cop during all the cocaine cowboy days and stuff like
There
that.
you go.
Never wanted to be a cop, but I ended up Florida State University, got my criminal justice degree, got into retail security, and I was in Boynton Beach catching a bunch of shoplifters and talking to the local cops all the time. They're like, "Hey man, why don't you come with us? Get a Batman belt and get all these
Look at you.
tools and stuff." And I was like, "Man, you go, we got a pension." I was like, "You know what? That pension sounds nice." And I was
Starts
approaching
making
my third.
sense.
I was like 28, 29. So then finally I applied, got hired in 2001,
Okay.
and I did like the traffic unit stuff as a CSO. Then I got into the academy a year later. So I really got sworn in 2002 as a cop, and it was the coolest thing, man. I remember driving the police car from City Shop because we had to do the fleet stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't believe it. I'm just driving a police car with a gun
Yeah,
on my
it's
hip. It
it's a
was
little
like, and
surreal, man, isn't it?
it was, man, because I had worked hard. I got a lot of, my college background. I partied a lot. I did some things that nothing illegal, like felonies,
Right.
but there was some, let's say, CBD
Some
oil stuff,
questionable behavior.
and they were strict back then, right? So I couldn't really get hired. But then after I managed, my own team and loss prevention and proved myself, they
Sure.
realized, all right, he's a good egg. He
Right.
had to just mature a little bit. So yeah, it was great. Did everything, through that career, everything. I was in a bike unit. I was in a vice unit. I did community outreach. We did a jam unit where we would monitor and arrest troubled juveniles that had one or two felonies and they were at home to keep them, just, it was really just an awesome career,
Good deal.
and ended up back on the road because, it is,
Yeah, I do
groups
know
get
how it is. Yeah, man.
disbanded or they want to push all their resources this
Yeah,
way. And
there's a different initiative, and then so
yeah,
something happens. So
so
you
I'm
get
thinking,
back
all
to the
right,
road.
and I go, maybe I should do FTO and
Right.
start looking at possible going for a sergeant one day. I'd
Right.
already been on about 11 years, 12 years, or 10 years now. And that day, June
Yeah,
12th,
man.
2012, I was getting off early because I was playing hoops,
Okay.
and the night shift guys were coming on, right? It's about 4:30, and dispatch just says there's a bolo from Del Rey, the next city next to us. And it was a red Crown Vic with a white top, black male, had robbed the bank with a gun and had a mask on. And how funny, because I didn't know the mask would be such an issue 8 years later. But he starts heading, they don't know which direction. So
Right.
standard bolo. You don't know if he hit 95 or big highway or if he's
Sure.
home already. And I hear them send the night shift guys. So now I'm like the only available unit. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to get stuck with some domestic or DCF case and miss hoops. I'm not
Right.
going to, I didn't want to miss
Sure.
my basketball. So I jump on the call. Hey, I'll be in the area bowling. We always do that.
Right.
And sure enough, I saw him coming over the bridge from the beach. But this was a Lincoln Town car with a white top, not a Crown Vic.
Okay.
And I saw a black male driver, and it's kind of fitting the right, it could be.
Sure.
And I'm letting dispatch know, I'm not lighting up anybody. And he takes a right, and I have to make a U-turn to get behind him on Federal Highway, US 1. And he kind of guns it, not super, like he was just trying to get away a little bit for a second. And then once I catch up, he's got a handicap tag. I'm like, is this some old timer coming from the beach? I don't really know his thing. And then he stops. I didn't turn on any lights. He just stops in the middle of Federal Highway. So I stop, turn on my lights. I'm letting dispatch know. I go, hey, this guy just stopped. I didn't initiate traffic stuff. I'm letting everyone know there's traffic coming. And we sit there. And dude, looking back,
yeah, man,
at that moment, if I got out and walked,
he was going to light you up.
Your car matches the description of a car we're looking for.
Excuse me, sir.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And some just take it easy, keep it, stay right here, wait for it back up, right? And they start sitting. Monroe was in the area, a DUI guy. He's just filled up with gas and he's coming on, so he's waiting. And then all of a sudden, the guy took off.
Right.
So now the chase is on. Him and I are both behind the car, going through parking lots, and he sideswiped a couple of cars and goes up this railroad district, which is, I was like, man, he must know this area to be going down that road. And all of a sudden, he took a left turn really sharp, and he hit a car that was coming the other way head on. So you see the car rise up and sink. Yeah, and now I'm coming up on him. So when I slam on the brakes, I'm not really in the best tactical spot because I didn't expect the sudden stop to happen.
Sure.
So I jumped.
So you're close.
I remember undoing the seatbelt, getting my gun. Everything was just nice and fluid. Probably if you looked at a video, it probably wasn't, but in my brain it was, right? So I jump out, and then I just start seeing his door open, and then I see the muzzle flash. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm being shot at.
Yeah, man.
And I could see the ground bouncing, like in a Wild West when they make you dance, man.
Yeah.
And I was dancing, let me tell you. I started just firing back what I could. And I finally I bladed myself near a telephone pole. And at the same time, when he was shooting at me, he was also trying to reach back and shoot at Monroe, who has parked his car near mine. So he's trying to hit both of us, right? Monroe engages with him and then finally gets alongside of me, and then we just start firing rounds down. The guy never really realized about shoot through a window. He's trying to shoot around the door, and we just blew him up. And I think we fired 38 rounds. We hit him 14 times.
Right.
I remember walking up to the car because he was messing with it. He was doing something, and he wouldn't listen to our commands. And Monroe was right next to him. I remember looking right into the driver's side window and just firing like 4 or 5 rounds right into him, just point blank. I was shooting a Glock 45.
Sure.
And we backed up, and he was still moving. What? It's like this. What? Late autopsy showed he was all jacked up on cocaine and stuff. But at this moment, I start backing up, and I feel a SWAT guy tap me on the shoulder, and he's got the rifle. He's like, "We got it, Eric. We got it." So I back up, and I'm like, "All right." And then I feel the pain in my left side of my foot. And I look down, I see 3 holes through my left shoe. And I was wearing one of those sneaker, tactical shoes. So it wasn't a steel toe boot or anything like that. Yeah. And probably would have ricocheted and, went through my armpit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no doubt. Right. With the luck we have.
I'm like, oh man, I got hit. So they sit me down, and I see I got another graze in my right leg from where it just missed my shin. You could just see the line.
Right.
And I'm like, holy shit, they cut my shoe off. And I remember just man, my feet are all busted up right now. I didn't have any pedicures or anything. And now
you got them dragon toes, bro. That's not cool. Yeah.
I wasn't that bad, but you're still feeling like I'm looking at my foot and I'm like, man, it just got mangled.
Yeah, man.
And they throw me in the ambulance. And I remember sitting there and I asked the paramedic, I was like, hey, how's the bad guy? Because I
Right.
never saw his body. They ended up pulling him out, starting CPR, all that stuff.
Sure.
And he goes, nah, he's dead. And I
Okay.
was like, so now it's starting to hit.
Right.
Holy cow, I just killed somebody.
Right.
Whether he, I had to do what I had to do, but still it was not something I was really ever prepared for.
And not something that you set out that day to do for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you get caught up with life, and even within the job and your own, and then all of a sudden something like this happens. And it
Right.
was, now I'm thinking I gotta call my wife because I don't want a
Right.
police car to pull up, scared to death. So
Right.
I
No
call her.
doubt.
I have a 5-month-old son at that point. We just had him. Father's Day was that weekend. And this was a Tuesday when I got shot. So that Sunday was my first Father's Day. And I remember calling her and the baby's crying and she's just aggravated with the kid and everything going on.
Sure.
So
She
I'm
got
like,
everything going
I just
on.
want to let you know, I was in an incident. I got nicked in the foot. They're going to give me some stitches. She's like, okay, bye. She hangs up. I was like,
Right.
man, really wasn't what I was thinking. I thought I'd get the whole, oh my goodness, my
Yeah.
hero,
Right.
my
Yeah. Well, you
baby.
kind
And
of
so,
downplayed it a little bit. So, right.
yeah, they ended up picking her up, bringing her to the station with my kid and, seeing everybody there and the doctor pulling out the fragments of bullets out of my foot, and then I remember getting home that night and I was a big Miami Heat basketball fan then,
Okay.
and they were playing OK City in the first game of the championship. So I'm sitting there watching the game with, I think they gave me a Percocet. I made like a
Sure.
strong vodka and sparkling water. So I was just like, man, I need to just chill.
Right.
My foot's in a boot. They let me go home. That was a good thing. And I remember the Heat lost. I'm like, man, the day I got shot, Heat can't even win the damn game.
Yeah.
They ended up winning 4 straight later. But at this time, the news goes tonight at 11. Dun dun dun. I'm like, oh, what happened?
Right.
An officer shot. I'm all into the story. I'm holy cow,
Like,
that's
yeah,
me.
man.
Because they're like, we haven't released the names. They're still trying to figure out what's going on. I go, man, are we going to get in trouble for this? I started
Right.
playing Monday night
Sure.
quarterback or Monday morning
Right.
quarterback, and I'm like, we did shoot a lot, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they going to
Isn't
kind
it
of come at
insane?
me?
Isn't it
Right?
insane
I just got shot.
how you immediately question your own justified actions
Right?
all the
It's
time?
crazy.
You start thinking
All the
bad
time.
about yourself. Like, maybe I did do something wrong. Right? I mean, that mind, man, starts ripping.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it did turn out to be a bank robber. He had robbed some other banks. The FBI had been looking at him for some
Right.
other bank robbery. So that's probably why he shot. He knew he was going away for the rest of
Right.
his life.
Public service announcement, don't shoot at the
Yeah.
police and you won't get shot. Right.
Yeah. There was a lady on the news when I was watching the next morning because I'm at home now.
Right.
And she's like, who shoots at the police? And they go,
Yeah.
I know, dead people.
Yeah, that's who they do,
And I was like,
unfortunately. But you know what, bro? I mean, listen, right? Thankfully, everything worked out. But that's still heavy, man. That's something that you need to deal with now.
oh,
Either,
yeah.
we know that you need to. How you decide to deal with it, that's what ends up
It it
coming
was a
back, right?
process though. Yeah, it was, at 3 months I was off the road, spent all that time with my little boy. It was
Right,
awesome, right? And when I got ready to go back to the road and they cleared me, I had anxiety. I'm like, oh man, we're going back out there, right?
right.
And then I'm reading stuff how you're more likely to be in another shooting if you've been in one. And then sure
That
enough, Monroe six.
hypervigilance. Listen, we're normally hypervigilant. You've been involved in a shooting. You were victorious. It still weighs on you. And now you're seeing threats, man,
I make
everywhere,
them up. I make threats
everywhere,
up sometimes. Yeah.
everywhere.
Well, what's one cool thing about the shooting was I was never one to count rounds, right?
Right.
I remember shooting and all of a sudden, like slow motion, because I didn't hear any of the shots. I didn't hear the sirens,
Auditory
just like, yeah,
exclusion, all that
exactly.
going on.
Everything that happens, they said, I was going through it. And all of a sudden, something just said, dude, you're about to run out of bullets. And I watched the slide back on my last shot, and I then put a new round in. It was like probably my best, like, flipped
Best
on the
reload
magazine,
ever.
bam, right back into it, dude.
Yeah.
But I just remember thinking how slow that was. Like I could almost see the shell casings, you
Sure.
know, firing away.
Crazy.
So yeah,
Crazy. So you're back on the road and now you're hitting that hyper vigilant, man. after being involved in this critical incident. And
It was
so,
two calls that I knew I was in trouble. One was
okay.
just a basic alarm call where you search the residence, and I
Yeah.
saw a bike leaning against the side of the house, and we found an open door. The slider was open, and we
Right.
ended up having to go through the house. It was the owner's bike, nothing. It was just
Right.
a false alarm. Dude, I was still flying high because in my head,
Your
burglar's
heart
in the
was in your
house. That's
chest,
his
man.
that's his
Yeah.
bike. He's
Oh
hiding,
yeah, man.
you know. And then the other one was I chased a shoplifter that hit in an apartment complex on his bike. He ditches the bike, and I'm coming around the corner, and I see him bladed against the wall, and I pull my gun out because I don't know what else he
Right.
wanted for. I'm assuming the worst. So got my gun out, and I go, "Let me see your hands." Starts coming out. He starts reaching in his pockets. I'm like, "Get your hand." You know, I'm really
Yeah.
getting in it, and I run up on him and throw him to the ground, and then I have my gun really close.
Right.
And then I ended up handcuffing him. I was asking him, like, "What the hell were you doing reaching in your pockets?" And he's like, "Sorry, officer, I've never had a gun pointed at me. I was scared. I was getting my ID." Because every cop that's come in contact with him asking for ID. So his moment of crisis, he's going for
Yeah.
ID, and he could have got himself killed,
He's
right?
got that. That's a conditioned response for him. He's getting his
And I could have
ID.
probably been cleared and all that, but I
Oh
was
my
just
God.
thinking about everything else. Unarmed
Sure.
man, it just would have been like, oh.
No
So
bueno.
that's when I kept drinking, trying to calm my central nervous system
How'd
down.
that
I
work
didn't
out
know
for you?
I was drinking too much,
Yeah,
and
man.
I was eating, and then I'm irritable the next day. And, the whole cycle happens, and luckily evidence popped up. The girl in evidence got a detective job because we had one sworn officer in evidence. It was a check
Okay.
and balance thing, and she got a detective spot. So they put the advertising out there for evidence. And I never thought, dude, you thought I would have been in evidence, man? That's the
Right.
farthest place. I didn't want any
Of
part of it.
course.
But then knowing Monday to Friday, my shift was like 7 to 3, holidays, not bad on vacations. Just I was like,
Seemed
it
like
was right.
something that you needed. It came along at the time that you needed it to.
Yeah, and the bosses looked at, they didn't like help me get it, but they knew it would be probably beneficial to them to get maybe in there. And
Right.
the other guy that put in for it ended up getting busted for cocaine, so probably made out.
No, we
But they
don't
probably did
want
a good
him.
choice.
We don't want him watching all the coke.
I
Yeah.
know, right?
One for you, two for me. Oh
You know
my
how that
God.
works.
So you
Yeah,
go to
so
evidence, and when you're in
it calmed it
evidence,
down. It
yeah,
calmed it
it,
down a
it
little
did.
bit.
Okay. That hypervigilance got dialed back a couple notches. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, I got this,
All right.
and new chiefs comes in, says he's taking all the sworn guys, they're going back to the road. So if you have a civilian type spot,
Right.
he was going to shake things up. And I'm like, oh man, they're going to send me, this is like 2 years later, they're going to send me back out to the road again.
Right.
I still listen to the radio. I still have to participate in certain operations we had. And, there's holiday details, you're still trying to make money. So I was still
Sure.
out there a little bit. I wasn't totally hiding.
Right.
Wasn't hiding yet. And, all this time I'm starting to gain weight. When I got shot, I was around 220 pounds.
Okay.
Still about, probably looking back, about 40 pounds too heavy then. But being a football player and always being bulky, I just thought that's me, right?
Okay.
And I
And
started seeing.
and Eric, let me interrupt you.
All right.
When you're that weight, what kind of diet are you, not diet, but what are your eating habits like at that when you're that weight that
Well,
time?
I didn't just do fast food. I mean, I would go definitely get like wings with the fries, or I'd get a sub. A sub was good because you could eat off of it all day.
Right.
You get one of those giant subs. I could have,
Put it in your pocket, pull it out
yeah. But
later.
then meanwhile, I'm eating, all that bread and all that stuff that, I just got over carbed, unfortunately, in my whole life,
Okay.
not just in police work. And the weight just started coming on. And then I'm drinking, eating, Doritos late at night and having a burger. And then morning, I was just not eating right. Too much,
Not really, not you certainly not eating clean.
right. Not as clean as I ended up
Yeah.
getting.
Okay. So tell me about that. So you're you're still you said there was a little shakeup. You're not really eating well. You're starting to gain some weight.
Right. I'm about 44 at this point. They're telling me I got high cholesterol. I should probably get put on, cholesterol meds, statins and stuff like that. My wife's very naturopathic, and she likes healing the body with more ancient type stuff, and
Right.
not having to follow big pharma and big med, what they're
Sure.
pushing. because she has her own story of her family and their health issues. So
Right.
he kept talking me out of that, and I just kept waiting. I always thought it was the drinking. Oh, I'll cut back on the beer, or I'll go to vodka now, or I'll cut back on the soda. And nothing was really helping because I was still eating. I was still having to deal with, everything going on up here.
Okay.
And the stress, I never wore my uniform outside the PD. I tried to leave it there. I became the guy. I was so proud to have that uniform, and now I'm hiding the uniform,
Right.
which we all kind of do anyways. But mine was just, I had an unmarked car, and it was just like very pride. Like I was undercover the whole time.
Sure.
And so finally, I talked to a boss when the rumor happened about us going to the road, and I
Yeah.
broke down talking to him, and he recommended I go to EAP
Right.
and talk to somebody. So I finally did, and she said, "Yeah, you got PTSD, and this is something that you should probably seek therapy." I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know who to tell. Like, what do I
Right.
do now? So, and I tried to go private route. I talked to my doctor, and then he recommended me to somebody that, of course, insurance isn't covering any of this, right?
Right.
So I was kind of stuck. And then finally, with my foot injury, because I have to go every year, because I ended up having a surgery in 2014. I had like a tumor and a growth there. So they had to go back in and beat me up again, which plays on your mind. You're laying there and, you're thinking
Sure.
about it. Yeah,
Right.
here we are again. Am I going to have to
Yeah.
deal with this my whole life? So I asked my workers' comp attorney, I go, hey, I got stuff going on. Can I seek therapy? He's like, yeah, we just got to file the claim. We filed the claim. And then little did I know what a freaking circus that is to try to get help. Having me go before a board of lawyers, breaking down in front of them
When
because
is
they're
this?
asking
What
me
year is this, Eric?
this is 3 years later, 2015.
2015. Okay.
Yeah. So it's about 2.5 years later. And now I'm sitting here in front of these lawyers, breaking down crying. They finally say, okay, send them to the independent guy that does a
Right.
big old thing on me about everything. He asked me questions. And I remember he wrote in his little paper about me being a plump male. And I was like, ooh, plump.
Lump.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah. And like, I
dude,
didn't like that description.
if you ever get described as a grown man, get described by another man as plump, those are fighting words, bro.
Dude,
Yeah, plump.
out of everything I read in that whole thing,
Plump,
that's what I
bro.
remember, right? Plump. So they finally
Oh
approved it,
shit.
and they let me finally go to Dr. Barnett in North Palm Beach, and he deals with a lot of first responders, and he deals with military. And man, once I met him, Dr. B, I always called him. He saved me, dude, because the first thing he told me is like, Eric, you're gonna have to learn how to dance with this.
Yeah.
And he explained to me about the whole central nervous system and how you used to sleep, a little easier at night, but now you won't,
Right.
because of the hypervigilance. You're not going to feel safe going out in the public anymore. You're going to want to keep your family home. No, you don't want to go to birthday parties or go to Disney World or
Sure.
social
You
gatherings.
started
And
kind of making sense of all the things that you were experiencing.
exactly. And I was like, wow. And it also made me feel good because not that I thought I was going crazy, but okay, it is something that's happening. And
Dude,
I'm not going
yeah,
crazy,
it
right?
validated for you everything you were
Totally.
feeling. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it totally.
And he's obviously culturally, that's the word, right? Culturally competent. Like he's working with veterans and first responders, so he gets it, right? He
Right.
gets it. That's
Yeah,
awesome. What
he's
was his
got a
name
cop,
again?
Dr. Mark Barnett. He's in North
Okay.
Palm Beach or Palm Beach Gardens area. And
Excellent.
he's got like a cop that got his leg amputated on a bridge in a car accident. The guy can't drive over bridges now, like stuff like that. So there's
Sure.
some real deep stuff he works with. And I always felt like mine wasn't that deep. I was like,
Sure.
I got shot in the foot. Yeah, haha. I remember the doctor at the hospital when I came in. She goes, "Would you shoot yourself in the foot?" And I go, "No." It's
Right,
always the
right,
joke,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So I always thought there was worse people, but I knew I needed to talk to somebody and not get drugs and not get prescription stuff to help me sleep. And I needed someone to help me get this out, right?
Right.
And he did, man. I saw him until I retired.
That's
And
awesome.
I called and left him a voicemail the other day going, dude, you won't believe what I'm doing now. Look me up online or, my
Yeah.
websites. I go, this is what all that therapy released and
Yeah,
allowed
man.
me to accomplish. So yeah, it's great.
Allowed you to work through that with and listen, the first step was you reaching out to EAP. And
Yep.
listen, I always say this, man, about EAP, and I think EAP gets a bad rap. They're the first step in you taking back control. It's not gonna end with EAP, but it's gonna be the first step, whether it's a
Right.
referral to somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. eventually you find you end up in the hands of somebody that can help you. And that's so important, man. So you're starting to get the mind right, which is awesome, man. That whole mind body connection. So tell me about that and what's going on with that.
So while I'm seeing Dr. Barnett, um, I'm still thinking about my weight. My weight's not really gone anywhere yet. I'm feeling a little better because he even talked to my wife and kids. Like he brings everybody in at different times just to really get like, how's dad type of stuff. So
Sure.
sometimes you hear little things, you're like, oh, short tempered, or I'm very edgy, or I'm quick, with my
Right.
response, all this stuff
Yeah.
that I
Shit you
realized
don't
is
want to hear.
right. And it was never like before.
Right.
I was always easy E. I was always easy going, man. And all of a sudden shit was just getting under my skin,
Okay.
and so that was very therapeutic. And now I was playing basketball. It was a documentary called Cops in Cabins. They took 8 of us cops. Some of us knew each other. Most of us were retired. I wasn't. We went to a cabin in Blue Ridge Mountains,
Okay.
and they did a like a 20-minute documentary. One of the cops was a filmmaker, Patrick
Okay.
Shaver. He's doing the Cops and Campers documentary that we'll get into, but he filmed it, and it was just us telling stories in a town, and we go to breakfast, we had a barbecue, it was a safe place, right?
Yeah,
Everyone
man.
had gone through something. And I remember looking at the video, which was, I cry in the video because I was releasing PTSD and
Sure.
other stuff going on, and I didn't like the way I looked. I was like, man, I got to do something, right? Even though the video was awesome, I was proud to do it. It saved my life looking back. And at basketball, I always was lifting weights. I always played basketball 2 to 3 times a week. I was always very active, just
Right.
couldn't lose the weight. And one of my buddies had lost 50 pounds, and I go, how'd you lose all this weight, man? Because he's like hanging on the rim and stuff, and
Yeah.
like, he's like, this thing called keto. And I always joke because I never knew what keto was. I thought it was martial arts, some type of
Yeah,
new
no
training
doubt,
or
right?
something,
Sounds like it could
CrossFit.
be.
It's new CrossFit, right? All right.
Yeah.
So he goes, no, it's about, burning fat and ketones, eating more fat to use the ketones as energy, so you don't eat carbs and you don't eat glucose as much, and then your body will start to burn what's already there. So you're over fueled with glucose and carbohydrate diet your whole life. So when you get away from that, you start burning the ketones for energy. Your body will start burning that glucose and carbs you have on reserve. And then all of a
Okay.
sudden, so I looked into it and I was never a nutrition guy. I did protein shakes. I did what the TV
Sure.
said or the doctor said. And dude, I started keto in my kids' T-ball. And I remember because I also started intermittent fasting, and I
Okay.
started having a smaller window to eat, understanding that your body needs a break from digesting food all the time. And that whole eat every 2 hours BS that they've been telling us, it just makes our digestive system worn out.
Okay.
And you're not able to heal yourself in other ways, whether it's inflammation or it's maybe you got some PTSD stuff you're trying to work on. So once I started changing my diet and I started eating more clean food, I got off the carbs. I kept myself around 30 grams a day. And it
Of
goes up
carbs.
quick, man. One slice of bread's like 17 to 24,
Okay.
man.
So
So I
not
was like,
you
all
you're
right,
not completely ruling. See, so I'm gonna be that guy with you, all right?
okay,
This is what I do, Eric. I eat what I think is balanced, right? And because I tried the vegan route and
right,
my numbers got all jacked up, out of control because I started just eating a lot of sugar and a lot of
yeah,
bread because well, that's not animal products, right? I'm good to go.
right,
And so like I tailspin it. I was like, listen, man, I can't sustain this. I was eating um that 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 fake meat, whatever. It's
yeah.
like super high in sodium, and
Oh, it's terrible for you, terrible.
but I wasn't eating animals, right? So I was supposed to be healthy. And so, I just was like, man, this is no, I did it for like a year and a half, and I was like committed. I wasn't cheating, and
Right.
my health wasn't any better. And I'm like, well, this is bullshit because I keep getting told about my arteries and the plaque and the
Hmm.
clogging, and so
It
I just
scares you.
it
So you're
does.
like,
It scared the shit out of me. And so
yeah,
I abandoned that, and now I just eat like regular food. I try not to eat processed foods. I try to eat, beef, chicken, fish, um, you know, and I have my breads and my pastas and my vegetables and all that, and that's what I'm doing now. Tell me about the keto, and
So
is it a lifestyle, or is it a fad? Is it something that is sustainable? Like, these are the
it's
questions I have.
think about I read a book called The Carnivore Code by Dr. Saladino, and it talked about our ancestry and how we used to eat when we would kill the buffalo, and we'd eat the whole animal from nose to tail,
Right.
right? The whole thing, the balls, the eyes, the organs. You grind the calcium up from the bone, use the milk and the blood for sometimes the winters as another nutritious drink just to get through the winters. And you start looking at how we were a lot healthier back then. And then once agriculture showed up in our system like 10,000 years ago, we've slowly had a decline because we got into grains and we got into plants. And plants have defense mechanisms themselves because they can't run. They don't have claws, they don't have teeth.
Right.
So you know what they got? They got stuff in them that can cause stuff that hurt us. And I learned about oxalates. I learned about just pretty much in this book about eating more animal-based products. So that's when I went carnivore. But the keto way was just, I used cauliflower for my pizza crust. I used almond flour for some of my little bread things that I would make instead of regular bread because it was lower carbohydrates. Fathead pizza was a good one, pizza dough. And then I needed some for the bread replacement. I really remember that being an issue. So I got this brand called Outer Isles. They got sandwich thins. So I could stack it with like roast beef and cheese because you could eat as much of that as you want.
Right.
And then I just have a little thin layer of this like 4 grams of carbs bread loaded with mayonnaise, mustard, and I would bite into it. It was just awesome. It was filling, and I slowly started eating more meat. We eat the clean meat, because if you eat eventually corn-fed cows, just the history of them is cheap to make them that way, but it's not good for us at all. I mean, the meat's not as good as a grass, fed cow. So I just dove into this world, man, and kind of like a class learning about keto. And then I lost 20 pounds within like 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I was feeling good, feeling confident. And then over the next 2 months, I was down 30 pounds. And I was like, wow, dude. And
now you're exercising as well and doing all that.
Right. I would hit the gym, but I didn't do anything different. The only thing I would do was I would stretch a little more, and I would definitely do a little more cardio on the elliptical like every other day with weights. So I was in the gym every day doing something.
Right.
And losing weight and then getting my meals straight. I ate at 9, 12. I had a fat bomb snack around 2:30, and I ate my dinner at 5. Never ate again. I continued to drink. I was still drinking, because that's something I've always battled. But it was more vodka, sparkling water now. It wasn't beer, filling up on all the carbohydrates.
Gotcha.
So I'd have a glass of vodka to calm my nerves down because I don't want prescription drugs, and I couldn't smoke marijuana then. I'm still a sworn officer. So I needed something, right? And I was big on not getting hooked on any pills. So losing the weight, a desk, my desk at work, I got one of those desks I could stand. I stopped sitting. It's called a Veridesk or something. And man, I was just counting my steps. I had one of those step counters. Sure. I was like, oh, I only got 9,000. I better step it up. And I walked to PD. It was just a whole thing was going on mentally, feeling better, more energy. I was losing more weight and satiated at the same time. I'm eating ribeyes, and I got broccoli then on the side. Now I don't get the broccoli, but at that point, I was still trying to throw vegetables in there because I felt guilty.
Sure.
Zucchini lasagna I lived off of. I just used the zucchini slices as my pasta. And you just get a low carb sauce and you throw the cheese and meat. And if I didn't have ricotta cheese, I throw cream cheese in there.
Okay.
So man, I kill that, meal planning. And, every Sunday football, I make 2 or 3 meals for the week, and freeze them. And just, man, I became invested in myself. And once I started seeing that success, 6 months later, I was 204 pounds from 245 pounds.
Oh, wow. In
I
6 months.
Pretty much 45 months of sick. And I never saw that kind of weight loss ever without someone being sick.
Right.
And yet my blood work came back fantastic. The only thing that they were concerned about was I had one of those CAC scores, because I did get diagnosed. When I was heavy, I got diagnosed with heart disease, and they wanted to do stents because of that blockage in my arteries. Oh. They scared the hell out of me. About 3 months into my keto journey, they tried to say, hey, you need to go to a cardiologist. And here I am talking to this cardiologist, and I'm telling him, man, this new way of eating, I'm really getting healthy, man. I know my cholesterol is high, but I've been reading about cholesterol, and it depends on your diet because you have different parameters of your cholesterol. You got LDL, and then you got VLDL, and it breaks it down based on, so if you're eating clean, some of your cholesterol numbers might be high. And then I did the research on the cholesterol numbers and the whole American Heart Association and how crooked they are and how they just take money for the heart sticker and they
Right.
sell garbage out there making people sick. And then started opening my eyes. I looked up the sugar companies. I was like, oh my goodness, they know that this is going to start
Yeah.
metabolic disease. They knew it and they
There's a
covered it up.
problem. There's a problem when the people that are paying for the research, they have a vested interest in a certain outcome.
Yep.
And we
And they don't have
can't.
to report the one, all those studies, they don't have to disclose if that doesn't work out the way they want. So it's
Well, that, and it's, I think, you don't have to dig real deep to find out that, follow, it doesn't matter, right? When you're on the job, follow the money. You want to find out who did it, follow the money. You want to
Yep.
find out who's promoting something, follow the money. Who's getting paid for you to do that, for you to eat this way. And, when
Yes.
the dairy industry and big pharma, they get together, some bad things can happen for us.
Well, I saw a couple of documentaries. I saw The Magic Pill, I saw Fat Fiction, and I started seeing a trend of, wow, they just profit from us being slowly sick.
Right.
If
Yeah,
anything really kills us right away, they'll outlaw it. Of course, they're going to take a bunch of people to die first here. And then,
sure.
oh, the slow stuff, yeah, we'll make money off of them, like
Right.
fluoride in our water and all that stuff. All that stuff. We've been played, man. And I started getting mad. And I started, I remember the opioid epidemic down in South Florida. I remember
Sure.
arresting doctors for the pill mills and stuff. So I
Right.
never had a lot of confidence in medical based or pharma based medicine. That's what it's
Right.
kind of become. So that's what helped me, to start changing my diet, get away from doctors. And then once I was feeling good and they wanted to do the stents, and I started doing research on stents. And one of my buddies had died of a heart attack, our canine guy, in 2016. And he had stents put in like 3 years before.
Right.
And I was like, man, I started reading, let me read up on these stents. I'm not going to go to, the big companies to look up. I'm going to read up other doctors that were helping me with my keto journey.
Right.
And then hearing their opinions, and I'm like, man, you got to be careful. Sometimes they build up, and can cause the blockage. They can spin. There's all kinds of stuff that goes down with those things. And I was like,
Right.
and then I heard you can heal yourself through diet. I started doing it. So yeah, the keto thing was fantastic. And then cops at work started coming up to me. You lose 50 pounds, they kind of notice, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's right, no doubt.
what's happening? And I'm, my skin was looking good. I was just glowing.
And this is the thing, for people that aren't watching this, you look like you're running like you're a CrossFit guy, or you could run triathlons. I mean, you look like you're in amazing shape.
I have never been in this shape in my life. Even when I played high school football, I was too heavy. I was trying to eat my way into weight gain,
Right.
and I was probably more athletic then, obviously I was younger, but man, after I did carnivore, I lost another 20 pounds and now I'm 180 pounds, which is the weight I probably should have been my whole life.
Right.
I was just thought I was a big guy. So I had to keep lifting now I'm a
Now,
strong little guy. It's crazy. Everything's reversed. I was a
now
weak
let
big
me
guy.
ask you, for you to maintain what you're doing now, this is a lifestyle now, correct?
Right.
So my whole thing is sustainability. Like, anybody can do anything for a short duration, right? How are you how have you incorporated this into a daily, this is your lifestyle?
Well, it's not a big chore to think about eating because right now I got 2 pounds of ground beef. I'm going to make burgers.
Okay.
But man, that's my meal plan for the day. Like for breakfast, I had I had roast I made the other day, and I'll throw in some cottage cheese. And I drank 2 eggs this morning. A lot of people don't like to, I didn't feel like scrambling. So sometimes I just eat the damn egg. I just
Right.
swallow it like Rocky. It's done.
Yeah,
I feel
no,
good
that
about
ain't
it. And I
happening
move on.
over here, brother. So that's good for you. Good for you. Rock
So
rock on.
I'll rock on. I like that. So, and then, my kids eat clean too. They eat a little bit. My wife makes her own sourdough bread. We use a lot of bone broth. Especially that's how I break my fast in the morning. I have my bone broth coffee, which is, I still do coffee in there.
Okay.
and some heavy cream. And I was telling you before, I do a little shot of stevia because being a cop all those years, Dunkin' Donuts, I still like
Yeah,
a
right.
little sweetness, which I know affects my insulin and all that stuff. But we break the fast. My kids eat, we have snacks, walnuts and almond butters and stuff for them. And we can see it if they have too much bread or too much pasta, we can see it. We don't
Yeah.
use like whole wheat. We use she's got her whole world of stuff that she
Right.
uses. I don't eat the grains or I don't do a lot of that stuff. So I'm
I
very
got you.
easy to go.
So
And that's
keto,
been, I'm sorry,
good. Keto50.com,
keto,
right?
like
Keto,
like Hawaii 50,
yeah.
FIVEO.
Keto50.com. And that's your site. And if people want some more information about that
They can
whole,
see me as a
like
ball-headed
how you
heavy
do
cop.
it, right? That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. You also got something going on with cops and campers. Tell me about that, man.
So I retire. I go to sports nutrition school. I get my license. Now we're gonna hit the road, right?
Right.
I got a new career. I'm gonna help cops. My whole career was helping citizens. Let me help everybody, right?
That sounds
And
good.
well, the whole COVID thing happened, and restrictions kind of popped up. So we didn't know where we were gonna go because we sold our house, got a truck and trailer. We got a toy hauler, which is a bunch of Legos and army men and stuff. There's no adult toys on there yet. And we decided to just travel for a couple years and figure out where we're going to call home. I
That's
always knew I
awesome.
could fall back into some other type of career, whether it be law enforcement, retail, or my new endeavor, sports nutrition, personal training that I got into, my new niche, right? So
Right.
we're on the road. We end up in New York in July 6th, 2021. And I routinely put up my thin blue line flag everywhere I go. And I meet a lot of people, first responder people, whether firemen, corrections, or other cops or families of cops. And then we start talking. And then I introduce my sports stuff and my nutrition. Hey, I was sick. I know you guys are on medication. Let's try to get you off of them. If you're
Right.
pre-diabetic, let's get your A1C down. We can do this. Well, this one campsite, the guy rolled up on me. And I sent you the video, and he told me to take down a thin blue line flag. And I couldn't believe it. I thought he was messing around. And then I decided once he told me again, I'll record him.
Yeah.
And it turned into a shit show because I went off on him and I put it out there. And I ended up getting suspended from Thousand Trails, which was our camping group, for 2 months because I was belligerent to staff because I had an issue with a manager too that came over to take down an American flag.
Right.
Even though they had Canadian flags there and other flags, I was just scratching I was so pissed off.
Yeah, man.
And that's why you can see it in the video. And the other stuff I said off video, I wasn't very proud of that moment. And my wife,
Good. You know what, bro? Listen,
talked to me and
I'm glad you owned that because I always say, man, the minute you let that emotion get a hold of you, man, you end up losing the argument because
mhm,
it becomes about something other than what it should be, right? So
right.
good deal,
So
man.
I took, I put the flag in my truck for the night because I didn't have a post on my, we have an aluminum toy hauler. So I didn't want to put holes in my
Right.
aluminum to try to put up a flagpole at this moment, right?
Right.
Figure I'd mess it all up. So I put it in the truck for now. Let's sleep on it. And all night long, I'm walking around texting
Sure.
people, everybody I knew, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna do a story on this." Like a law enforcement today did a magazine story about it, online one, and the next thing you know, Channel 12 Hudson Valley found out about it, and they came out and did a news story on it. And Big Frog Radio wanted to interview me, so all
Yeah.
of a sudden, I'm being interviewed about this thing, and I'm talking about it, and my buddy and I had this concept of cops and campers, like the cabins when I was telling you. I had said,
Right.
why don't we
Yeah.
do this with trailer parks? Get us all together, a retreat. We can have music. Guys are going to want to drink. Hey, we can drink together.
Sure.
Some guys are going to meet guys they never thought they were going to meet. Maybe make a best friend. And maybe
Right.
that friend's going to save their life, right? Because we know what happens to a lot of retired cops, with them killing themselves, whether it's depression or
100%.
drinking themselves to death
Yeah,
and all
man.
this.
They
So
lose purpose.
so as I'm thinking about this, we go back to Niagara Falls, and all this stuff's going on, me being suspended. And then there's a group in New York, this conservative group, they decided to have a rally for me at the campground a week later.
No
They put
kidding.
it out on social media. So now I'm 5 hours away in Niagara. So I drive back. I'm like, I got to go to my own rally, right? So
Right.
I drove back. And now they got me as the lead truck of like 50 trucks with thin blue line flags, American flags. And we
Cool.
drove all over these very liberal cities in that area where people were flicking us off, hating on us, but it was hysterical. I was just
Right.
having a
Right.
good time. New York State Police stopped us from getting to the campground. They came out like the Gestapo. They're all wearing their masks. We're trying to give them bottles of water. They can't accept it because it's looked at as a bribe. It was just
Oh,
like
jeez.
ridiculous. So I said, at one point I'm in the back of a truck going, we're going to start this group called Cops and Campers. We're going to pro first responder campgrounds. We're going to give them our money instead of spending it at these other places and blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And it was born. And I kind of had the logo and I just worked on it. And then, with me being suspended, Scott Sherwood in Ithaca, New York owns a campground. He put out there on social media, anyone know this guy? Tell him to bring his flag, his camper, and his family, and they could stay for a week at our campground
That's
for
nice.
free.
Yeah, man.
So we went out there, and he had a police charity thing that weekend. And so I was meeting all these cops there. It was almost like a pre-cops and campers retreat.
Very cool.
So the band was retired cops. So I got with them, and we decided, all right, the summer of 2022, the next year, we're going to have a cops and campers, our first rally.
Right.
And we did, dude. National Guard came out with bounce houses for the kids. We were selling T-shirts and just getting to know each other at bonfires. We had a movie night, chicken barbecue, live band playing Saturday night.
Nice.
And my buddy Patrick filmed it. And we got a 32-minute documentary coming out where they interview us and all the different people there and what this meant to them and how
Good
therapeutic
stuff.
it is. Yeah, yeah. So we turned something bad into something positive.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome.
Yeah.
What so you got Cops and Campers going on, Keto 50. You're busier now than you were when you were working.
And you know what? I've actually been able to help more people, and it's more satisfying. And I'm not getting judged for the way I handle the call. I'm no body cameras following me
No,
around.
man, you decide. You decide. That's awesome how you're being part of everybody's solution, man. Good stuff.
And homeschooling our kids, being with them day to day. I mean, now they're 11 and 7. So just think, we're almost 3 years into this new life of traveling full time. I've been with them now since they were 7 and 4, almost every day.
That's
I'm
awesome.
with them. Occasionally we come home holidays, they may stay at a friend's house or something like that. For the most part, I'm in those kids' lives, and with what I'm seeing going on out there in society, man, it couldn't be more of a better time for me.
No, that's awesome that you're doing that for them. That homeschooling and allowing them to accelerate and learn at their pace and their interests. I mean, that's awesome, man. So if the folks, two things. Folks, guys and girls driving around, man, they're on shift, maybe they're getting off shift. What's something that you could share with them that you haven't already that's going to add some value to their lives, Eric? Something, a philosophy or something that you used to become a better version of you, if you could talk to them.
Obviously we're all a little bit different, and I know that your eating habits you don't really concentrate on enough. We study law to be able to arrest people, right?
Right.
You got to know some of that stuff in the back of your hand. And I just think we would kind of if we could just dive into the nutrition end of things a little bit more and really look at it and scrutinize it and understand why you're in the situation you are. Why is that gum belt? Why is my belly hanging over? It's not your fault. It's what the food industry has done, making food cheap and available like that. And we don't farm like we used to. I worked on a farm for 3 months with my kids, and that was some of the best things I've ever done. I never knew anything about it.
Right.
Where your food comes from, what is really in McDonald's, what is in that stuff, man, and how that's really contributing us to having heart disease and diabetes. I mean, that stuff is toxic, and they've allowed it because it kills you slowly. The FDA is not our friend.
Right.
They're farmer and big food's friend because they allow the stuff that they commercialize and put out there. I would say try to fast on duty. Don't eat. Just drink your coffee, and then when you get off, go get your bacon and eggs and stuff like that. Don't get that. And if you gotta eat on duty, meal prep, beef jerky. You can have all kinds of cottage cheeses. You can have sardines. Don't go for that quick fix of French fries, and that stuff's just garbage, man.
And if people need some help with that, man, or want to know more and do their own deep dive in their research, how do we get in touch with you?
You can find me on all the social media channels as Keto 50. I have Facebook groups where first responders can ask questions, and other people say, hey, this is what worked for me. I put up articles. Sometimes I get blocked by, the big food because they don't like what I'm saying. And they'll put the little warning that, canola oil is not it's good for you. And I'm like, no, it's not. We have literature that shows how toxic it is. It's just a
Right.
cheap poison, but yet they'll block me for saying it, so, I hit a nerve, that
Yeah.
means I know I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm barking up the right tree.
That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric, thanks for taking the time, brother. I appreciate you like you don't know, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Reynolds.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. I'll see you in St. Augustine.
Yeah, brother. Thank you.